when someone asks you, how are you doing? What do you say?
I'm fine.
I'm fine.
In this video, we are going to discuss how to find authentic happiness in the midst of the stressors of life. I'm LizJSimpson, founder of the Big Money Movement, accompanied by
Cheryl Parks.
And Heather Petherick.
our esteemed coaches here at the Big Money Movement. And so when we talk about authentic happiness, let's dive into this subject. The first word that comes to mind is the authentic part, right? And so if you're going to find authentic happiness, when I think of authenticity, I think of something that's unique to you, right? It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. So in order to find authentic happiness, I think self-awareness is crucial, right? Being in tune with yourself. You know, as an adult, I feel like I'm still in seek of who is this woman, right? And I'll tell my friends and family, I'm like, every year I feel like I'm evolving, and it's like, all right, let me introduce you to Liz 2.0.
Yes.
And here's Liz 3.0, because like who I was then has evolved, and with that, I'm constantly relearning myself, right? One of the things that has resonated with me is the fact that our emotions are our truth. And so sometimes I will pursue things in life and check the boxes, and I'm like, oh, well, I checked the box, so I should be happy. And then there's times where my emotions are my truth, and they're like, no, something's not right. Like we're not aligned with, you know, the state of your life. So I think it's just being diligent about staying in tune with yourself. I know for myself, journaling is a big part of that. Like my quiet time, I love my time to think about what I think about and explore and really just figure out who I am and who I'm becoming. I also know for me, like personality assessments have been illuminating, right? Like just learning my personality type, and that helps me understand my map of the world and how I see things. Cheryl and Heather, what do you think about authentic happiness?
Yeah, when I think about authentic happiness, I think of the word surrender or letting go of outcomes. And I don't know yet at this point in my life whether it's a precursor to authentic happiness or whether it's an outcome of it. But this notion of surrendering control, right? You think in your life, there's so much of our lives is spent trying to control, contain, keep a lid on things, right? Have that persona of I'm perfect, I know all the answers, I've got this all buttoned up. And I've found in the times when I have the faith or the courage to surrender to the outcomes, I don't know how it's going to turn out. I don't know if I'm going to be a rock star or if I'm going to fall flat on my face. But when I find the courage to surrender to whatever is going to happen, and I trust that whatever does come, I'll have the wits and the wherewithal to navigate. I find this sense of, maybe it's confidence, but I also think it's an element of true happiness where I can just relax. And instead of being anxious about trying to control things and keep all the plates spinning, I can actually be truly present. And that's when that authentic happiness and I think an element of confidence comes up that is unshakable. So I think of surrendering. One of the other things that comes up for me, I think, is an absolute ingredient to authentic happiness, and I'd love to know your thoughts, is gratitude.
Oh, yeah.
If we can just take a moment and be grateful for what is, the good, the blessings, the opportunities in our life, instead of constantly focusing on the misses, the gaps, the what hasn't been achieved, I find my happiness amplifies because I take stock of the positive, and when I do that, I find more things to be happy about. So surrender and gratitude for sure are two key elements for me.
What's interesting about you putting those together is, you know, one of the state of minds or philosophies that I've adopted is, you know, everything's working together for my good. And it's interesting because it's a blend of those. Like, it's the surrender of, I can't control what's going to happen, but I'm going to trust whatever happens, that there is a silver lining or a purpose behind it, and then finding gratitude in the midst of that surrender. So, I definitely think that's
You gave me chills there.
What about you, Cheryl?
I completely agree with the surrender piece. I remember listening to a runway fashion model, and I think she might have been in her 70s, and she would talk about when she puts her makeup on in the morning, she'll look in the mirror and say, this is as good as it gets today. And that sticks with me, is like, it's this idea that you don't have to look a certain way and be a certain way and show up a certain way. And it's just a way to say, I'm here. This is good.
This is
Yeah,
enough.
this is complete.
Yeah.
I'm enough today.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop primping and prodding and
Yeah.
pulling and tucking and
Yeah.
all the things, right? All the things.
Yeah.
Mostly aligned with women, but I'm sure men do it too.
Yeah.
So I love the surrender piece as well. And then for me, total go-giver, and as I was thinking about this, I'm like, go-giver does not equal people pleaser.
That's a key. That's a key
Go-giver does
distinction.
not equal people pleaser. You have to understand what your boundaries are. And I would say to be a go-giver, you also need to understand your strengths.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, who wants someone to come with all their weak parts and their,
To contribute.
right. I mean, that's not the contribution that you're bringing, but, and also just assessing, like, so your strengths and then your time and your energy and creating boundaries around how much can I give? Like
Yeah.
without depleting myself. How much
Yeah.
can I give with also refilling my own cup?
Yeah.
Right? And then operating in the sphere that you need to operate in. So go-giver does not equal people pleasing. I just want to be clear about that.
Yeah.
It's literally just understanding where you can make an impact for people, and then connecting and adding a time frame to it so that it's not this idea that it's indefinite, right?
Yeah, this
You know?
constant pouring
Yeah,
out.
is it 6 weeks? Is it 3 months? Will we reassess in 6 months? And that kind of thing. So that I also feel like that's a complete area for learning because as you've said so many times, Liz, we're in the business of people
Yeah.
and in relationships, and it just really helps you understand just the current situations that we're in
Yeah.
and how people are feeling and how they're thinking. And sometimes you don't get that when there's a transaction behind the behind the curtain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to key on something you said because I think it is genius, Cheryl. This element of self-awareness as a component of authentic happiness. What comes up for me is the sense of, the saying that you can't give from an empty cup.
Yeah.
And the self-awareness of where my strengths or my abundance is. And being able to give from that rather than constantly giving from a place of scarcity or depletion.
Yeah.
Because whenever we do that, and we've all been there, right?
Resentment.
There's this air of what we're giving is laced with resentment or martyrdom.
Yeah.
But when we give from our strengths, from where we already are filled up and where we feel a level, I'm going to say nutrition or strength,
Yes, I love that word.
it is a double blessing,
It
right?
is,
When
yeah.
we give from strength and it can be received in strength. So I love your point about self-awareness and knowing where we have capacity from which to give.
And in my world, we say give from your overflow.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And it's something about giving that does just shift perspective on everything, right?
Really
Like
does.
just being able to contribute to someone else's life. I know in this season of my life, like that's the focus. I had a season of my life where I always say I was like individual contributor and seeing like what I was capable of and like how do I stretch myself. And then after a while, those achievements lost their valor or their appeal to me. And then it felt like, okay, but what are you doing for others? Like, what's the legacy you're leaving behind? How are you using your gifts and talents to contribute to mankind, for lack of a better phrase? And I will say, like, the joy of seeing others' lives improved, like, that joy is just incomparable.
Right.
Like, that is the greatest joy for me. And I think that whenever I want to choose authentic happiness, because first of all, I think it's a choice. Like, I think
Yes.
you choose to be happy. Right?
Yes,
Like, point blank.
agreed.
period. Like,
100%.
that's a choice. But whenever I'm looking to choose it, or I need motivation, or I need something to shift my perspective so that I can make that choice, it's always like, okay, to your point, what can I do for others? Or seeing the gift of contributing to someone else is like, oh, yeah, there's so much to be happy about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to drop one thing into the conversation. What I also find is that giving from a space that I was previously lacking in, right? So confidence. I'll speak for
Yeah,
myself,
okay.
right? So I lacked confidence, self-esteem, all the words, right, that go with that at one point in my life.
Yeah.
And when I'm able to give and
Ooh.
create and support and build foundation for confidence with someone, that's just like, wow.
Yeah.
It's like feeding a previous version of yourself.
Yes. Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
where it's almost like I think of the metaphor of like where a bone is broken, when it heals, that becomes the strongest part. Right? And to be able to now take what was a weakness and give from a now strength.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
That's amazing.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So if you are looking to find authentic happiness, the moral of the story is you can stop looking and you can choose it for yourself. Make sure you tap into your self-awareness. Take the time to get to know yourself. You are the most important person in your life. Do you know yourself well? And once you've identified who you are and tapped into your unique map of the world and the things that truly light you up, surrender to the events of life, right? We cannot choose the events in life, but we can choose our reaction to it. Once you surrender, keep in mind it's not just about you, but how can you contribute to others around you? The gift of giving to others is twofold. The giver and the receiver both benefit. Self-awareness can be the slippery thing to navigate. So can sales objections. So join us in the next video where we will talk about how to overcome objections in your sales conversations. We'll see you there. Click that next video now. Bye.